The following is a conversation with Tommy Wheatley and Luke Kidwell. Tommy and Luke are the founders of Raw Milk and Deadlifts, a unique farm-themed merchandise company working towards spreading the message about the magic of farming, what a nutritious diet really is, and the importance of developing real functional strength. I met Tommy and Luke at Polyface Farm in Swoope, Virginia, and was intrigued by their unique entrepreneurial story, their company mission, and of course, their hysterical apparel. Tommy and Luke are two young entrepreneurs whose story will inspire and captivate. You are listening to the Co-Movement Gym podcast, where we inspire people to move and live courageously. If you are enjoying our content, please support our sponsors in the description. I thank each and every one of you for being on this journey with us. Now, please enjoy the show. Folks, listen up. I want to take a brief moment and thank our podcast show sponsors, Lombardi Chiropractic, Native Path Supplements, and Redmond Life. Lombardi Chiropractic has been my personal chiropractor for 10 years and has kept my body strong and healthy. Native Path Supplements are used by numerous co-movement clients and our coaching team here at the facility. I highly recommend that you try their chocolate collagen peptides. I was made aware of Redmond Life by one of our trainers here at the facility. He recommended I try Relight electrolyte powder. This supplement has dramatically improved my afternoon energy levels and overall hydration. I'd like to thank these three companies for providing outstanding service and products that make our society healthier and more resilient. Mention the Co-Movement Gym podcast when you call Lombardi Chiropractic, and not only will they treat you like family, they will provide a nice, enticing discount to all listeners. And use code COMO15, that's C-O-M-O 15, at checkout when shopping at nativepath.com or redmond.life and receive 15% off all your orders. Your support to our show sponsors assists in us paying for expenses and continuing to provide content we hope you all enjoy. All right, Tommy and Luke, welcome to the Co-Movement Gym podcast. How you doing, guys?
We're doing good, man. Thanks for having us. Happy to be here.
We appreciate it, brother.
Hell yeah. So we're all supporting the raw milk shirts here.
There we go.
Right? Yeah. Most of our listeners are on audio, but we're all wearing different colored raw milk shirts because we're fans. So you guys are the founders of a company called Raw Milk and Deadlifts. I met you down at Polyface Farm with Joel Salatin and a bunch of amazing people. I heard you speak, really resonated with so many things you guys stand for. So I really wanted to have you on the podcast today. So I want to get into the idea of your company, Raw Milk and Deadlifts. How did that come about?
So I guess in a way, it kind of all started with an interest in fitness, kind of around high school age. Like a lot of high school kids, we started going to the gym and lifting. And I think that's what kind of got us into any concept of like health at all. And so just from, early high school age, we had a passion for fitness and lifting and things like that. That got us into thinking about healthy foods, nutrition, and then just kind of over the years, going through that rabbit hole of being into fitness and being then into health. Of course, that's kind of how we found farming and people like Joel Salatin and things like that. So then kind of separately, we each found farming after high school, though, we're obviously best friends our whole lives. We kind of wound up working on two different farms and just really fell in love with the whole just lifestyle of farming. And then, we discovered raw milk, and it just kind of fascinated us for a lot of reasons. One, we grew up drinking dairy and sometimes didn't have great reactions to it. So we just thought dairy was bad, but then raw milk had no issues. Just the history of how it's been slandered and fear mongered, and how it kind of tied back a little bit into the fitness world, right? Our old passion, how like old time strongmen would swear by drinking raw milk, right? And how it was kind of like this ultimate like strength or bulking food, right? That you almost didn't need protein shakes anymore because it's so nutrient dense. So it was almost kind of a little bit of a joke to just kind of highlight, okay, we love like farming and kind of the natural foods that come with farming, and we love fitness. So we kind of picked the two highlights out of each of those categories. We're like, raw milk is maybe our favorite thing about farming, and deadlifts are our favorite thing about lifting. So yeah, it really just started off as a joke, a funny idea.
Yeah, we thought like raw milk is like should be a basic fundamental like pillar of your diet, and deadlifts are a basic fundamental pillar of the fitness world.
Yeah.
And just, we'll be honest with you, it just sounds really catchy, you know?
And also too, you know, when we say we came up with the idea for it, that we literally just came up with the idea for the phrase. We had no concept of like what the business would be, what it would do, kind of what message we would preach. It was more just, hey, it would be funny to make a couple t-shirts that say raw milk and deadlifts on it for ourselves. And of course, you know, now it's gotten into a lot more than that, and trying to like educate and spread a certain message and things like that. But initially it sounded like a funny phrase that we wanted to throw on a t-shirt. That's how it all started. Yeah.
That's crazy. So for listeners, you were childhood best friends, right? Growing up?
Yeah, we met on the first day of school of kindergarten.
Yeah, and you stayed friends all throughout school, right? And then what happened during college? Did you go to the same college or no college, or how about after high school?
Actually, Tommy went straight to work after high school, and I did a year of community college, and then I went straight to work as well. And I was up in Maine, he was down in Southern Virginia. But you know, we still would talk on the phone all the time, and you know, and catch up. And then just recently this spring, I moved back down to Southern Virginia with Tommy, and we're like, this was like the first summer of really trying to give the raw milk and deadlifts like an actual, you know, go at it to try to make it something.
Hell yeah.
And we did, we met in kindergarten, and we were best friends. And then a little bit, I guess, in like maybe we went to different schools around like 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, and we kind of lost touch there. And it's funny, one of the good things maybe about like modern social media is that it was like cell phones and Facebook that actually did reconnect us. So then like in 6th grade, we started hanging out again. So, you know, we all love to complain, and so do we, even though it's ironic because, you know, our business is on social media. We all love to complain about it, but sometimes there's benefits, you know, and it did reconnect us. So we'll give it credit there.
There's pros and cons to it for sure.
Oh yeah, we could do, the three of us, a whole separate podcast called just on that.
Yeah,
right.
Might have to be done.
Might have to be done for sure. So you threw out something interesting there, and I want to dive into it. I didn't plan on it, but so you did a little bit of college for Luke there. Tom, you went straight to work, but you know, you went into work as far as like you went to a farm, right? Is that where you guys went to work right after school?
Yeah. Each of us on like the separate farms.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at with that is, you know, I think the schools nowadays are pushing college to everybody, right? And I could go on and on about this. And so, but they're getting into this huge debt, right? They have no idea what they want to do. They don't have a mentor. They don't have a calling. And so here you guys are, you know, entrepreneurs now building this really cool, unique company, don't have a college degree, and, you know, you don't have college debt, you know, which is really huge. But I just want to give listeners permission to like not follow that status quo, you know, like you can go out and get a hands-on job and, you know, get some real world experience, farming, construction, like plumbing, you know, a mentorship program at a gym, anything. And not rack up 100K in debt for a liberal arts degree and then work at a coffee shop, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. So I was in community college, and so I was checking all the boxes, right, that everyone was kind of telling me to do. And then I was kind of fed up with that. And that's when I just Googled organic farm jobs, because like, I want to try farming out. And so I left school to go work on this farm, and I was telling, you know, friends and family how much I loved it, how awesome it was. And they were still pushing me, okay, so you're going to go to school for agriculture? I said, well, why pay to go learn how to farm when I can go work on a farm, get paid, and learn how to farm? But just that little piece of paper of just having like a degree in agriculture was like really important to so many people. to try to get me to do that. But it just never made sense to me.
Yeah.
To have that desire.
And I mean, gosh, it's looked at as, hey, like in our society today, it's kind of looked at like, well, I guess not everyone needs to go to college. There's sometimes where you don't need to. I mean, I think there could be an argument made for the other way around, where it's like, there's a very small group of people who maybe should go to college, who need it, right? I should say. And that I think there's probably an argument made that the majority of people really don't, but yeah, like you were saying, especially in those young years, as a young adult entering into your 20s and things, right? And college kind of reinforces this, is like, these are the chunky years where you just kind of do whatever, you'll figure it out later. It doesn't matter, and yeah, I think those are probably the best years to start to learn things, like you said, learn trades, construction, farming, plumbing, electrical work. And, even us, we're both 24 right now, which obviously in the grand scheme of things is pretty young, but even we are already kind of like, man, we wish we started to learn some of these trades when we were 18, because where would we be now? So I think no matter where you are, like, trying to start wherever you're at, because you're always going to look back and be like, man, like, had I started learning construction when I was 18, my gosh, that even we think like that.
And the reality is, let's say 20, 30 years ago, 40, 50 years ago, a lot of the knowledge was concentrated in the universities. But now with the internet and there is still the option of like self-educating yourself, every farmer I know, like, they get done farming and they study agriculture, and whether they're reading all these books or watching all these YouTube videos, even if it's just like the funny, silly, like YouTube farmer, entertainer, homesteader types, they're still like dropping bits of knowledge that are very useful to everyone. And people just kind of forget that you can educate yourself. You don't have to be taught by someone else necessarily.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Our neighbors here in Central New York is a Mennonite family. He's actually a business partner of mine on the farm side of our company. All 100% grass-fed, organic, the whole deal. And they have an 8th grade education.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, guys, like, these boys and girls, the skill sets they have at that age, like middle school age, I'm talking about like tractors, building chicken coops, basic framing, gardening, like the whole spectrum of that hands-on side of things. I am amazed by 8th grade what these individuals can do. And that's a testament, super basic education from the book standpoint, right? But when you talk about calluses on the hands, and I'll tell you, this is the other thing. So for people listening, you're like, well, do they make money and are they successful? Yes. I know many Mennonite and Amish families in this immediate area within a 20-mile radius that have rocking companies. And they have waiting lists for customers that want everything from pole barns to houses to sheds to meat to agricultural custom field work. There's so much. And so we went on a rant with that, but you guys threw that out there and I thought that was interesting. So it's good if listeners can relate, especially we have a lot of people, we have a younger listener crew too. Give yourself permission. Go do a 1-year mentorship at Polyface Farm, right?
Yeah, right.
Like, I was telling my wife when we got home, we have a 9-year-old, and I told her, I said, if Asher wanted to do Joel's stewardship program someday, I would be down with that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And then you learn, especially from like the Mennonites and people like Joel, the financial side of things. They just invest, they don't stockpile that money, but they also don't blow it, on like trucks and luxury stuff. They invest it right back into the farm, and you see how that pays off.
We've done that with our company 12 years in now. That's all we've done. I haven't upgraded my lifestyle at all. And it was because of just rolling profits, right? Like better gym, more equipment, more clients, more marketing, better website. And then you build like this brand, right? And that's what you guys are doing. But yeah, I think, when I talk with Joel on our podcast, I asked him one of the keys to success for being a young startup. And he said, have very minimal expenses.
Yeah.
And I was like, amen to that, right? Like, how many times
Right.
do we see these people have $600 a month vehicle payments, and then they
Yeah.
go out and they have, you know, another 600 on student loans, and then they have credit card debt, and then, you know, it goes on, and then they have to go get that office job or something they're not passionate about, you know?
Yeah. And how many times have we seen people who they live like exactly at their means, you know,
Mhm.
and then they get upgrade and pay, and then they just upgrade their lifestyle right exactly to
Totally.
their pay again, and they get the new truck, or they get the new this or that new toy,
Yep.
and then you're right back at square one, and you are living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah. You know, one instance, that's a great point, Luke. You know, one point I want to make, and I did this young too, and you know, you guys I'm sure are probably doing some of the same. It's sort of cool to pigeonhole yourself with being on a strict budget because you have payments on good stuff
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
real estate, land, right?
Yeah.
Appreciating assets. And I did that, and I encourage people to not be afraid to really almost force yourself into being on a budget, because you're paying for things, but good things, right?
Right.
You know, whether it could be an apartment complex, you know, it's just, it could be something for your farm that's, you know, making you more revenue, you know, that's good things, that's good debt. So, you know, I think the goal, like Dave Ramsey a lot of times says, no debt, you know, at all, cash for everything. And I disagree. And Joel and a bunch of people do with that. So, you know, so I want to get into raw milk. So we're wearing the t-shirts and your company is representing that. I'm a fan. I drink a gallon well, our family drinks 1.5 gallons a week. Clean local source. It's amazing. We have for years and years and years. And so this is no new news to me. I understand the concepts behind, you know, the difference with pasteurization and raw. I want our listeners to hear it from you. Why has raw milk been given a bad rap through the years? You know, what's the background on that?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because there's like two answers to that question depending who you listen to, right? The standard answer that most of the public has been given is, well, why is raw milk been given a bad rap? Because it's, and yeah, I'm using air quotes for the people who can't see, because it's dangerous, right? Or it's going to make you sick, or there's bad bacteria or bad bugs. We had someone yesterday tell us about the harmful bugs in raw milk.
Oh yeah, and that was just yesterday.
That was yesterday.
At the farmer's market.
It was like someone who was in the dairy industry, but you know, the conventional dairy. Really though, if you look into it, and organizations like the Weston A. Price Foundation are a great place to start to kind of read into the actual history of raw milk and pasteurization, when and why it started. You really start to realize that definitely the concept of mass production and being able to ship all over the nation or increase shelf lives had a major stake into why that was being done. You also start to look into the career of Louis Pasteur, who of course, you know, pasteurization is named after, and just lots of shady stuff going on there, and very little of it really seeming to have to do with much health and wellness, and more, you know, catering to bigger scales of agriculture, or even, you know, he was a major player in what has now become today's essentially big pharma. And I mean, that's a whole rabbit hole in itself, but he had a lot to do with, you know, inventing kind of like modern day vaccines and things like that with his tests. And anyway, you just start to go down that rabbit hole. And for those who kind of, I think, have that common sense a little bit about them and can put together the dots, and to see how there's like slander campaigns for newspapers to make people afraid of drinking raw milk, almost like a political scheme, that just was, you know, very untruthful. And if you look at the statistics, again, Weston A. Price Foundation is great about that. How if you compare raw milk, and it's this dangerous food, to like spinach or, you know, these leafy greens that have outbreaks every so often, statistically speaking, those are far more dangerous and have killed far more people than raw milk from local farms have ever, and probably will ever kill. So I guess our opinion, to sum it up, is it definitely has to do with allowing them to just do things and farm and ship at a scale that you and have a shelf life and things like that that you just can't do when milk is in its actual natural state. And let's be honest, the powers that be in this country, or in this physical world, tend to not love things that make us healthy, right? That's just, I think, kind of a fact. And raw milk, when it comes from a clean source and all these things, is a great way for us to improve our health. And I just think, because that's how it is with, animal fat, steak, red meat, all these things, right, that we've been told will kill you, will give you a heart attack, will make you sick. It's turning out, oh, these are actually a lot of the things that make us healthy. That's probably why they don't like them.
Yeah. And pasteurization, excuse me, pasteurization. So raw milk has been like a staple in the American diet for, decades and decades and decades up until recently. And what pasteurization did, it created a middleman where there used to not be one. So now the milk has to filter through this middleman who's going to then distribute that pasteurized milk and make, untold millions of dollars every year by, because if, I buy my raw milk from Tommy and he milks the cow and then he filters it, sells it to me, there's no room for a middleman. Oh, but now you need hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of pasteurization equipment in order to sell it. Boom, there's your middleman.
Yeah. Or then I get, a lot of the big dairy farms also do their own pasteurization. But now, like Luke just said, to have that operation for them, just like soybean or corn farmers are sucked into, buying all this equipment because they need their combines and things. Well, now a dairy farmer can't just be a guy with some cows, right? You have to have, like Luke's saying, all this expensive equipment. And now I'm sure, obviously we don't have hands-on experience farming in that way, but not only the equipment, but the facilities that you have to be able to, pass the types of inspections and things like that. It definitely makes it to where doing it on a small scale, seems to be much harder, than farmer so-and-so down the street with a barn, a milking stanchion, some cows. It really makes that, if the laws, and it depends on state to state, but if the laws do not allow for that, then it really makes that idea of a farm very hard.
Yeah, the barrier of entry is just far too much.
Yeah, that's very well said, guys. I want first for people to reference this Weston A. Price Foundation. We're not just making shit up here. I want people to look up, like, the dangers of raw milk or not, and the health benefits. I want you to do your own research, beyond, CNN or something, dive deeper into that. You've hit on two things here that I really want to get into. The control mechanism of, the big powers to be, we'll call them. This put a middleman in a system that was working just fine. There wasn't hundreds of thousands of people that just started dying from raw milk. And then, our big brother comes in and saves the day with pasteurization. Like, it's a system, like you said, it makes things very hard for the small producer that wants to sell locally, i.e. raw, right? But it makes the barrier of entry also very hard because of the investment needed for pasteurization, equipment and whatnot. And then what you get is you get these farms with 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 cows, pumping out these, 3 milkings a day, unhealthy cows. They never see sunlight, right? And then you rip all the healthy fats out of it. You sterilize the milk, you feed it to the nation, and then you wonder why everyone has lactose issues and all this shit, right?
Right.
Yeah, I could go on and on. The other thing is the shelf life. We, the three of us, and hopefully a lot of our listeners, are big fans of, like, supporting local farmers, local food, local systems, right? Now milk has to travel. I'm assuming this is the average food travels 1,500 miles to the supermarket. That I do know. I can't state that for milk specifically, but I know it's a long ways, and I know it has to sit on the shelf for a long time. Folks, that's not normal. Like, straight up, like, if your milk is ultra pasteurized and can sit on the shelf for a month, like, that's not what milk was intended to do or be, right? And so if you're having issues digesting milk, or you think milk is bad, or your experience with it, try raw milk and do your research first. If you're freaked out about it, because even our family, you know, and different friends are like, oh, don't you shit your brains out and all that.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, actually my digestion is great. And I consider myself fairly healthy, and our whole family and whatnot that's drinking raw milk. So, yeah, I wanted to get into that because I can just see some people being like, oh, you know, you guys are rebels, just drinking it right from the bulk tank, you know?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. You know, and to touch on kind of like the shelf life a little bit, you know, sometimes that's what, well, first of all, a lot of people ask, how good does raw milk, you know, how long does raw milk stay good for? And what most people usually mean by that is, how long does it stay to where it doesn't start to taste sour or taste different? We actually learned at that Polyface event, Sally Fallon Morell was saying how,
she's the president of Western Price Foundation.
She was saying how raw milk doesn't spoil, it sours. Right? Whereas pasteurized milk, because of all the changes that's undergone, will spoil. And people might say, well, what's the difference? Well, we completely understand not just wanting to drink like a very soured milk, if nothing else, because of the taste. But kind of one of the cool things, and in our experience, it usually starts to sour after about a week to 10 days ish. Like you'll start to notice the difference in flavor.
Yeah, it's not soured, it's just starting souring
to sour. But you know, people might say that's a drawback to it, but it's really not, because raw milk can be pretty sensitive to undergoing those changes in not a long amount of time. It really makes it it opens it up to doing lots of different things with it. And that's where people get really into fermenting, right? And making kefir or yogurts, or using more soured milk to make butter. I've heard that from a lot of people. We personally never done too much of that, but like we've made a lot of butter, but just with the fresh cream. A lot of people swear by they like a slightly soured cream for their butter. And of course, then you would have a more kind of fermented or cultured butter. So there's actually a lot of pros when you have the knowledge to go with it. And we're not experts in all the different uses of milk, but there's a lot of people who are, especially these. I mean, you hear the stories of like the old school homestead, like farming women. They were masters at that. Cheeses. I mean, that's another thing. All these ways to use that souring process to your advantage. It really turns out to be a pro.
And I bet a lot of those old school homesteading women didn't have much more than 8th grade education.
Right. For sure.
Well said. Yeah, I push out my raw milk consumption a week. You know, I find it day 7 it starts to turn over, but again, I'm getting it weekly from the farmer, so I'm out by then anyways, right?
Right.
And I have tested out like day 9 and 10, and it is more sour, and I've never gotten sick, a bellyache, nothing. But I would say the average person that opens up the jar at that point would probably turn their nose to it, right? But no, I was like, you know what? Let's just see. And yeah, no side effects at all. And then I'll hide it sometimes in our kids' cereal, and he's fine too.
Yeah, and you know, and if you got any other animal, if you have even just a dog or like pigs, they don't mind day 9 and 10 milk. I'll tell you that much.
We've given them a lot longer than day 9 and 10, where again, might not like be bad for our health, but it got to the point where it's like, okay, this just looks too gross to consume. But yeah, I mean, gosh, especially for like the farmer or aspiring homesteader, if you have a cow, especially, and that really comes into play, I think, when people have cows, because you're getting so much milk, usually more than maybe you can consume. I mean, gosh, that especially for pigs, or like you said, you know, we give it to our dogs a lot. I mean, that's every animal seems to have an affinity for milk, you know, so it can be put to use there.
Yeah, our cat, he's pretty aggressive when I'm drinking the raw milk or raw yogurt, which I consume also daily. He is like on my shoulder and like mauling me because he wants in that bowl, and I let him lick the bowl when I'm done. But animals are drawn to it for sure.
Absolutely.
So for people interested in finding a healthy source of raw milk, there's a website out there, guys. What is that?
There's a realmilk.com was created by the Weston A. Price Foundation. And that's a, just raw milk directory. You put in your zip code or state or whatever it may be, and it'll give you the closest raw milk producers. Sometimes it's not entirely up to date. Sometimes, if a farm goes out of business or a new one opens up, maybe it's not on there right away. So I say between that and, asking around at local farmers markets, someone is bound to know someone who has some raw milk.
Or you just use common sense also. And like, if there's a clean farm who, the farmer and you believe in the practices, like stop and say hi.
Yeah. Right.
I've done that through many years of, just living in different locations when they all love to talk. And like, I haven't had anyone say no, and so, yeah, you can make a good friend with that too. So
absolutely.
I want to get into what your normal day schedule looks like. So you guys are farmers, you're fitness advocates, young adults, like, you live a multifaceted life. Like, I'm curious myself, like, what does a normal day look like for you guys?
Well, I try to get up, early, and I like to have at least an hour in the morning to read the Bible. That's like kind of like my own, phones off, phones away from me, sitting there focused on the Bible. And, everything's quiet. And the animals aren't out and yelling at you quite yet for food or to be milked, chores, farm chores right off the bat. And maybe for people who don't know farm chores, that's, feeding and watering the animals, the things that have to be done.
Milking.
Yeah. Every morning, or the tasks that, every day on the farm are called farm chores. So I like out farm chores. And then, if you can sneak a breakfast in, depending on what farm projects you have throughout the day. And then, between sneaking in time for farm projects, podcasts, just trying to sneak a workout into, it's, just packing in as much as you can around the schedule of the farm. The farm really dictates your schedule day to day.
For sure. Yeah. And I think we tend to be evening workout people more often than not these days. We actually love working out in the morning, and I think I'm sure you and like would agree when you get it in early. It's like, oh man, that's nice. Like, but like Luke was saying, the farm dictates, and the farm seems to want more of your attention in the morning. Also, so I think we're usually kind of like sunset workout people right now, which is fine. And then also trying to make the most of the area and of the property. So while it's still warm, trying to go to the lake or the pond or the river, and making the most of that stuff.
Yeah. And one of the beauties of living, of the farm life is it is seasonal. So like during the summer, like we'll be honest, it can be tough to get a workout in when
totally.
you're working the long days and there's lots to do and you got to make use of the sunlight. But it's actually the past couple of years, like the winter time, when it's dark for a lot longer, that's kind of been the time where we like try to bulk up, where we like, we're consuming lots of like, meat, potatoes, milk, you're lifting heavy. But during the summer, maybe you want to do more things like swimming and bike riding and not just being so focused on like just weightlifting necessarily, getting a lot more workouts outside. So you can play around with rocks and sandbags and logs or whatever it may be. But during the winters, we're really focused on like deadlifting, benching, squatting, inside the compound movements. You've got your hoodie and sweatshirt on, because we've for a while now, we haven't worked out in routinely in an inside gym in a long time. We definitely, if we're visiting somewhere, we'll sneak into a commercial gym, but we have a lot of weights here on the farm. So even during the winter, if you're lifting in the barn, obviously it's not like insulated and warm and mirrors and music playing and stuff.
And a lot of our equipment is outside, like right outside of one of the houses here. So like, it's, if we need to, we can put it inside, but for most of the winter, there's still outdoor workouts here. When Luke was in Maine, I think that was like too much to ask for a Maine winter, but in Virginia, we still do most, of our workouts outside in the winter, and that's kind of part of the workout too.
Mental aspect of
the mental workout. Like this winter, it was a lot of using 2 old straw bales to make a bench for a bench press, and a lot of just bench pressing out in the cold wind. That's like that's an experience everyone should have, I think. But yeah, it's definitely, gosh, it's a good life. And I mean, even just the other day, like just the little things, it was a nice, like really sunny morning. Before we did the chores or anything, Luke and I were like, let's just like make, a big loop, walk around the property. It's like, what a simple but awesome way to start your day, just to go and walk. And I mean, even in cities, people do that and stuff, but it's hard to beat walking in the middle of, Appalachia in the morning to start your day. So definitely just feel blessed from that perspective.
Boy, I resonate with so much of that. It's like it's similar to my life also. Maybe not as much on the farming side of it, but like you mentioned, like seasonal based training, right? So like I swim a lot in the summertime, like as much as I can. I just like open water swimming. And yeah, hiking and maybe some rock climbing and, as much stuff outside as possible, gardening. There's just a lot, chainsaw work, dragging brush, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on this time of year. And I'm the same way as you also with the winter, like it's more gym based, maybe put on 5 or 10 pounds and like more power lift type, move some weights. Yeah, that resonates so much. Yeah. I'm curious, what a few things, like how many hours a day are you doing farm chores? Now, I don't mean projects, because I understand that. I know the projects never end. But like actual farm chores, like how many hours a day?
Well, like you said, seasonally, it's you're gonna have different animals have different needs during the year. You try to take an hour in the morning, hour in the evening. It's like what a lot of people shoot for if your farm's set up efficiently. Now, obviously, it's very easy to let that kind of get out of hand and things take longer. But between 2 people splitting up chores, trying to come up with the most efficient manner, that's usually what it hovers around. That's not like a written in stone law or anything.
And it's kind of funny because we kind of have like different references for things, because like, so the farm that we're at right now it's a big property. It's about 300 acres that we're managing for somebody. But even though the property is very big, the farm itself is a more of a homestead scale. It's not commercial, it's not production. But Luke worked on a more, a commercial operation up in Maine. And we have a very good friend 15 minutes down the road who he has a, what would still in the grand scheme of things, I guess, be considered a small, very, very polyface motivated, rotationally grazed farm that his is commercial. And it's just kind of interesting to like compare those, right? And you see, okay, the difference in maybe a homestead's morning chores versus a commercial operation, right? Where there's a lot, for him, our friend, there's a lot more birds to feed. There's a lot of chicken tractors to move, right? He has to move his like fencing to rotate his sheep, and to pull. So it kind of depends like what scale you're doing. I guess a lot of people who are wondering about this idea of farming, I feel like most of those people maybe are more towards the homesteading side in the beginning. And yeah, depending on your scale of operation and all those things, and how many people you have to help you. I feel like you said, excluding farm projects, because that's a totally different thing, but chores really shouldn't take up your whole day, especially on like a small scale homestead. I think if you do it in a good way, it can kind of be a nice thing to where it's like enough time to where it's a good solid like routine and way to start your day, but not so much that hopefully it's not like creating tons of extra stress. But I've always thought that that's kind of one of the blessings of like a farm in a way, is it forces you into this pretty healthy morning routine, of being outside, interacting with animals. I guess depending what kind of animals and how big your family is, I would say usually maybe kind of on the quieter side of things, just kind of a therapeutic, awesome morning routine that when we're left to our own devices to discipline ourselves into that, very easy to get away from, right? But when it's like, gosh, I kind of can't not milk the cow this morning. It's like farming is the ultimate self-help thing, right? It forces you to do these routines instead of trying to, just motivate yourself to do them.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like we got, this is our second year doing meat birds, so chickens, 8-week Cornish cross. And then we got this year, it's our first year doing layers.
Nice.
And then we have our typical garden. But like, I highly resonate with what you just said with the healthy morning routine.
Yeah.
Like every morning, 7 days a week, you get out of bed, right? And I drink some water and some sea salt. And then I go outside.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then sunny, rainy, warm, cold, and everything in between. And I do this barefoot, like as much of the year as I can. I'm in Central New York, so it's like 6 or 7 months. But like, it is really unbelievable. Like when I walk outside and, we're obviously in the rural Central New York, like, it's so quiet and like birds and like the sun today was all a mist across our field. And like the sun was rising and like, I didn't have my phone. I want to take a picture, but the morning routine with animals, and living with the land according to nature. You would talk about health and like having a gym membership and eating healthy. Like this is a huge component also. I really think more people could benefit from that,
Yeah. It was when we were at the Polyface event, there's a guy there, Mike Dixon, who's known as the Fit Farmer. And he was talking about that a little bit in a speech he was giving where, he thought he was like healthy and fit and stuff. But he's like, he was a personal trainer back in the day and he was in the gym, he said, for like 8-10 hours a day. And he's got the loud, intense music and the clanging, banging. And he said he felt like his like hormones and adrenals were like totally drained at the end of every day. But he was conflicted because he thought he was like healthy and fit. Then he starts farming and he gets like, quiet, peaceful time in the morning with animals. And he's like, oh, this is a major aspect of health that he was totally missing.
Yeah. And even, like we're talking, about this healthy morning routine and stuff. There's even just such a difference. And look, like say if you're having like a lazy day or whatever, like after the farm chores, you plop on the couch or whatever. Well, honestly, there's still such a difference between having gone out and done that before you went and gone plop on the couch and pass out again or something, compared to if you had just like stayed in bed or just slept in and I mean, there's that real popular speech or whatever. There might be a book to go with it about the guy who like says to make your bed every day. And no matter what, at least at the end of the day, you've made your bed. Well, if you make your bed and do farm chores, that's like the next level, So I just think that's a healthy thing. Yeah. Because even if you accomplish nothing else with your day, there's a big difference between having that little, maybe an hour, a couple hours in the morning, just mentally and emotionally big.
Yeah, the making your bed, that was, I think it was a Navy SEAL speech, right? And then also Jordan Peterson talks about that a lot. And that's something I do 7 days a week. It's probably the first thing I do. I neaten the sheets up and make sure that's good. And it's like check mark number 1.
Yep.
Yeah.
And out to the fields.
And out, exactly. Yeah. For me, it's obviously smaller than you guys. I may have 15-20 minutes, we're growing operations and different things, but right now that's where I'm at. But it's just a pleasure to be out there for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I want to get into, like, when I look at people, young people, especially, or any age, we can say this for, that are looking at making a leap into becoming a business owner. Okay. There's a lot of people, I think it said like 87% of people now are unhappy with their day-to-day job. Right. So there is this reoccurring theme with people that are unhappy and want to do something different, but there's this middle piece. It's called fear and doubt. They are so nervous with starting their own company or applying for another job or changing that routine up. I'm really curious, like, what fears, if any, I'm sure there were some, but did you guys have to overcome when you jumped into the raw milk and deadlifts company, and with these different jobs of following your passion? Did you guys have to overcome any like stigmas or fears?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think in a way, we maybe had a little advantage in there because we weren't faced with maybe that massive change of, hey, we have like this solid job like that we've been at for a while and like our whole lives revolve around it, but now we want to leave it, right? Because I know that's a big thing for people. Like they've been working at a company or they have this job or this career that they're very tied to, but they want to leave it. You know, we were working on our two separate farms, but you know, definitely had like the time and availability to start a company even without having to like, you know, leave those jobs. So I think we had the advantage from that perspective, though, you know, of course, once you start the company, there's a lot of stuff that can come up. And for us, the two things that come to my mind are one, you know, especially in the beginning, just I think for a lot of people, it might feel very unnatural to like put a lot of your own money into something at the beginning, right? Like, oh, we're going to put like a lot of the money we have saved up in our personal accounts into buying like tons of hats and merchandise or something, you know, like, and of course, then you have the fears of, well, most of, you know, our parents and stuff probably would have told us all growing up, like, to be smart with your money. Don't, it's not smart, you know, they're just extremely very safe and guarded. What if they don't sell? What if we're just stuck with all these boxes of merchandise forever? So I think initial fears of like learning to kind of invest in yourself and in your company, I think is very new for a lot of people. Because if you've had a job, you don't really do that. You know, you spend money when you're just spending. I think investing, especially when you're responsible for how that investment turns out, can be scary. And then, you know, also a big one is I think overanalyzing. And I think that shows up in probably all businesses to a degree. Just sometimes being afraid to pull the trigger. When you have 10 options, what could I do? I could do this way, this way, this way. Right. Just saying, you know what's like, there isn't a perfect option. Like just do one. You're going to learn on the way. I think probably in most cases, it's better to choose like to just go with something instead of spending too much time thinking about it. I think for us that shows up with say for example the merchandise. Well, there's a million designs and colors we could go with for any given thing, you know, like like even the shirts that we're wearing, you know, we went with this 3. Like we could have a red shirt with white letters. Have this. And it's like, you know what, just go with something and you can do the rest later. And I guess, yeah, those are the ones that come to my mind.
Yeah. And for like what the brand that we kind of wanted to create, we knew that there was going to be an aspect of kind of like being not in the public eye, like we're like celebrities or famous or anything, but a lot of it's based on social media. So you're gonna have like a lot of attention towards you. Yeah. And then at that Polyface event, we did you know like a farm workout with a group of people, and then we did the speech, you know. And totally like if right before you walk up to give that speech, you're like, man, if I just stay at that other farm, I'd be getting a paycheck. I wouldn't have to be talking in front of no one. Like, this is like it's like that risk. It's like, man, this is more than a bit off. Like, did I bite off more than I can chew? Why am I putting myself outside of my comfort zone? But then when you're in your comfort zone, you're like, man, I should get outside of my comfort zone.
And I think so, you never regret doing that.
Yeah, afterwards you're always like, and that's what you had to. Afterwards, you're like, okay, that was the right move. You know, I definitely. And for us, it's the spiritual aspect of it is huge. We totally felt called to do this. You know, this is definitely not like you know, we pray about it all the time. Like, look, this is God. Like, this is your message. We know that you're just putting us in charge of helping spread this message, but we know it's not our message. Yeah, we're not the mad geniuses that came up with a lot of these concepts. Yes, it was you. You know. Yeah. So that was always like, whenever you could work yourself up in your head, like, oh man, what am I doing? You kind of ground yourself when you pray and like, okay, I know that like, this is what he wants me to do. So that really helps ease a lot of that anxiety, fear, doubt, worry, whatever it may be.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's something, you know, we all experience all the time in business for ourselves or not. Maybe, you know, we work for a company or whatnot, but the fact of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I now, and it's funny, we all have the two sides of the brain, you know, the one side, Luke, that you said, oh, why am I here? I could be, at the farm making a paycheck and all cozy and whatever. And then the other side's like, you know what? Fuck it. Just jump in and do it,
Right.
And, I think everyone needs to take more of that risk, right? Like say yes to the talk, say yes to this idea, give this a shot, print 10 t-shirts and see if they sell, just throw it out there. And, I don't know, I think there's a lot of learning that comes from that. Absolutely. The overanalyzing piece, Tommy, that you said, I think many people talk themselves out of things by overanalyzing, right? I would rather start something and fail fast than overanalyze, wait for the perfect time, that, right? And then it becomes addicting to a point, like as long as you're taking calculated risks, right? Like it has to make sense too at some level, but that varies from person to person. Those are great points. So for people listening, the 87% of you that may not be inspired in your day-to-day life, that's some great advice right there. Jump in, say yes, don't overanalyze, and don't be fearful. Like being fearful of what other people think or how you're due and this and that. I always say, I'd rather be the man in the arena, getting my head cut off, boom, than in the crowd, right? With, drinking my lemonade with my, with my shade covered hat. I'd rather be that person just getting slayed. And I had to tell you what, like that is rewarding. Like you said, after your talk, like, how did you feel? Like you probably felt amazing, right? Like, of course you do. And so whether you think you did good, great, bad, whatever, it still feels good to have said, you know what, hell yeah, I did that,
And kind of like what you said about, like failing, the fear of failing, messing up. I think Joel Salatin's got a quote, and I think it's like it's framed in his store. I can't remember, but it's like, if something's worth doing, it's worth failing at first. And you don't have to listen to him long to hear him talk about like his early farm failures, but look at him now. I'm sure it feels great to be in the position he's in now, looking back at where he messed up or where he wanted to quit and didn't,
For sure. Speaking of mess ups, I have a question here. What surprises have you guys had? Like, oh shit, like didn't expect that. Was there anything yet that has come up or no?
I'm sure. Well, that's a good question. I think for one thing, and maybe not so much that we didn't expect it to be a possibility, but sometimes if you've never experienced it, you're not ready for it, is with the social media. And we're not like, we do not consider ourselves influencers at all or anything, but our page definitely has grown the last year and gotten a lot of like followers, and certain posts have gotten a lot of attention, and never before having experience with like haters, right? And people in the comments and stuff, and and I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with. Even people who are way bigger than us, you talk about how like the comment section sometimes can be a mean place. Now, I think we're extremely grateful, because absolutely the huge majority of any response, whether it's a DM, comment, anything that we get, is overwhelmingly positive.
99% of the time.
But you definitely get ones that like you can't help but like really get frustrated at when you read, or just frustrated, like you're clearly so wrong, whatever it is.
or when they don't even disagree with you about, like, say, diet or fitness, whatever, and then it's just like a personal attack.
It is a personal attack, and I think that it was definitely a new experience, and I think if you it forces you to have some element of thick skin and some element of also not taking yourself too seriously. At this point, in the beginning, you're very like wanting to reply and wanting to correct everything that people might say wrong. And I'm grateful that I think our attitude for pretty much all of that stuff now is just like, don't even reply, and unless there's like a really great opportunity to make like a funny joke out of a response or something,
Right.
like a good comedic opportunity, just to not reply. But yeah, I remember the first few times, like sometimes like the comments can really stay in your head. And I think for anyone, like starting a business or whatever, who gets that, I think, yeah, to realize that that's a pretty normal thing. Actually, at that Polyface event, during one of the Q&As, we were sitting up there with, some other people who have, like Mike Dixon and Pork Ryan, who is another speaker there, and obviously Joel, like people who, so one of the questions was, how do you guys handle that? Because someone, I guess, in the crowd had started their own YouTube channel and said that they had gotten some comments, and everyone had good advice. And yeah, even to take it biblically, Luke was, kind of talking about our faith and stuff. Like we believe in the Bible, and the Bible tells us that we'll be wrongfully accused and attacked by people, and the key word there being wrongfully, that people are going to say things that are untrue about you, in this world. And to just kind of expect that, not only in your business venture, but in life. I think we're promised wrongful accusations all at some point, and you're going to be hard stretched to find a verse in the Bible that tells you to overthink it and to dwell on it. But that's hard, because that's the natural reaction, but it's a character building, if nothing else.
Yeah. And if you're in your, both you and Tommy and Luke have this, if your vision and the purpose behind what you're doing is true, honest, and authentic, I think those comments at some level don't affect you as much, right?
Right, sure.
But I definitely agree. We've had lots of those examples through the years. And you're right, they sting for sure at some level.
Yeah.
And I've got this habit now where, and I had to really do this a lot during the pandemic, but where I will type a response, but then I wait 24 hours.
Yeah. Very smart.
And that was great advice, made it like really good advice for me. That I now even, I follow now, whether it's an email or, something on Facebook. Because I'll type out this, initial response that's like, I'm gonna come for your head and everything else. But then it's like, dude, like once you let things settle and you move on with your day and conversations and stuff, like 24 hours later, a lot of times you don't even care to respond at all.
No.
And if beyond that, a lot of times you just agree to disagree and you move on, because that nothing positive is going to change from that.
Yeah.
And I wrote out I do a lot of like brainstorming to start the year, like visions and goals and stuff. And I put on paper, like, is your response or actions attributing to building your brand? And so if my response is negative or hateful or coming back at something that someone said to me or, the company, is that going to help us? Right. And in most cases, it doesn't at all. It just makes you feel better for about maybe, an hour or two. But it's not helping you build anything. And so, that's just something that's helped me with that example. Absolutely. Also.
Yeah.
What's the 10-year vision with Raw Milk and Deadlifts? It may be hard to answer, but I ask everyone this. So what do you guys see?
Well, and definitely subject to change, because we never know what will change or where we'll be pushed. But I think, gosh, a 10-year vision, I think we would love to really have expanded beyond, just being like a brand that makes hats and shirts, but really have established ourselves, as being able to do lots of speaking and educating and just spreading the message of the things we believe in, a lot of which we've talked about here, but talking to people all around the country about this farming way of life, right? And getting back to these foundational principles and faith. I do see at some point we've talked about it, and we really don't know what it looks like. We definitely would like to have some offshoot, I think, of ministry with Raw Milk and Deadlifts. Raw Milk Ministries has been thrown out there, but some level of that. We definitely want to get our own property to where we can host events there. We have a vision and a dream of turning a big old barn into a barn gym and having like a big barn gym, and instead of having a smoothie bar up front, like which is common, having like a farm store where people can get their pastured meats or raw milk, even if we're not in the, say if that's not like a raw milk friendly state where you can buy it there, maybe that can be like the drop off point, where people come to get the raw milk. And yeah, gosh, I mean, there's so many opportunities there, but I guess just in general, we definitely see ourselves gravitating towards, spreading more of the message, and trying to share whatever message the Lord wants us to share, but do that and expand past just the shirts and the hats and the funny Instagram posts.
Yeah, for sure.
That's amazing to hear that. First off, it's amazing to hear you have a vision, right?
Sure.
That question stumps a lot of people. But the fact that you guys are thinking about those 50,000 foot viewpoints, right? Like that's huge. And I can guarantee at some level you will manifest that for sure. Because you're putting it out there into the universe. I love the idea with the ministry, blending, farming, healthy foods and whatnot. Joel's, lecture that he gave, or, gospel, I'm not sure what you'd call it, but it was absolutely amazing. Probably the best that I've heard in my years of going to, a Christian church. How he connected the dots between so much of the stewardship of the land, whole foods, caring for your community, and the Bible. How he did that was actually the first time that I've ever heard that. And it was done so well and so eloquently that I came home and I started reading a book, Food, Faith, and Farming by Gary Fick, I think it is. Look that up. Have you read that?
It's obviously been thrown around in our circle a lot.
Okay.
And it's definitely on my list. Yeah.
Well, dude, I am ripping through this thing. It was written by a Cornell professor. And he so much of this is similar to what Joel was getting into, with the biblical approach to agriculture and, just, healthy eating and, nature and all of this. And so hearing you say that may be of interest to you, I would support you in that. Like, I think that is
that'd be awesome.
A really unique perspective that's not being done. And Joel talked about that. Like, it's like not being done.
Right.
I'm sure there are communities and churches that are dabbling with certain things and, this and that. But as far as being that focus point, it's not. And so you guys would be highly unique with that. And I think it would draw a big following, myself included. So I'll be upfront with
appreciate that, man. Thank you very much. That means a lot.
Yeah. And we need it. The world needs it. Right. So, what advice would you give to a young person considering, branching out on their own and starting their own company? I want one piece of advice from, both of you.
One piece of advice. It's fun. You have to find the balance of being like, taking action and like, just, coming up with a plan and going for it, but also being, calculated about it and not, but also not, like kind of what we were talking about before, paralysis by analysis, like not making a decision because you don't know what the right one is, or just going with the first one and not finding the right one. And, for us, faith is such a big part of it. It's like really before you take, come up with a plan and then pray about it, then take the action. I really think that little 3-step process of like, all right, come up with your own plan, then turn towards the Lord, and see what desires he puts in your heart and how he guides you, and then go for it. Don't put one in front of the other before you can turn to the Lord. And, if you're not a Christian, maybe meditate spiritually, whatever you got to do on the spiritual side of things. I would advise you to, pray to the Lord, but, whatever you have to do before taking that action spiritually.
Yeah. And I guess obviously I agree with everything Luke said. I guess, like realizing that any one choice or decision you make is not like going to alter the entire course of your life, at least from a negative perspective. So almost an aspect of taking everything a little bit less seriously than sometimes you might be inclined to. Yeah, I think that would be my advice, because yes, I think a lot of people who have this idea of starting their own business, they spend a long time getting ready to get ready, right? And gosh, now, I mean, we started our business on, Instagram. We didn't have a site for almost a whole year, but we just sold the merchandise and stuff through the DMs. Like, so I think depending on the business, the entry level can be pretty easy for a lot of them, though, to at least get started. I would also actually add one other piece of advice too, and it really depends what kind of business you're in, absolutely. But if it's applicable at all, I feel like there's still a value, because I did this, not actually with our business, with another one before, in learning how to pick up the phone and call strangers, right? Cold call to a degree.
Totally.
And like I said, it depends on the business. Okay, if someone wants to start a farm, maybe that's like less easy to figure out how am I gonna, but just having the confidence of calling up people from a business perspective and being able to talk to people or request things or ask things, or having the confidence to at least ask for a meeting or something. There was a point where I was doing 80 to 90 cold calls a day, which is actually a lot lower than, I mean, we have friends and stuff who sold insurance and they were doing hundreds. But and it sucked a lot of the time. But gosh, especially if you're a young person, I would like commit a summer to finding some reason to like cold call every day, all summer, a lot. And by the end of it, you'll have a basic confidence of being able to pick up the phone and talk to important people, so to speak, and not totally being terrified.
Yeah. So, Tommy did a whole summer doing that. And then I remember I never did anything like that. I was, farming. So I was mainly just with animals all day long. And then it was funny, we started doing this and people wanted to do podcasts and stuff. And he was like, oh yeah, sure. Yeah, let's do podcasts. But me, I was like really nervous, to do the podcast. And he was like, kind of teasing me, why would you be so nervous? And I guess it really just kind of goes back to what you said earlier was, being comfortable, being uncomfortable, and like, obviously, it didn't take that many podcasts before I got, kind of not used to it, but now I get excited for it instead of nervous for it.
Yeah.
Where he was at a huge advantage because of the first one, he was like, yeah, of course, let's do it too. That'd be awesome. Even with the speech too, he was a little bit more comfortable with that because he had given speeches before. And I hadn't. So there was a lot of like was much more build up in my own mind,
That is phenomenal advice. Funny story that goes along with exactly what Tommy just said was how I became friends and now good friends with Joel Salatin was exactly what Tommy just described. So
really?
this was a story, and people may be interested in this or not, but Dr. Sina McCullough, the co-host of their podcast, I sent her an email to be on our podcast. Like, I read her book Beyond Labels with Joel, and phenomenal book. And I've been reading Joel's stuff since 2007. So I wasn't new to him by any means. But I wanted to talk to Dr. Sina McCullough. And I sent her an email, and I thought for sure, no response. Literally that day, she responded with the nicest email and was like, I would love to be on your podcast. I'm so excited. I'm like, what? So we hit it off. Great podcast. And then numerous emails after that, just about like life and community and health and all of this. We became friends. And then she mentioned wanting to have me on their podcast. And I was, and me and Joel talked for 45 minutes, and Sina chimed in, and it was great, awesome. And then we talked after, and then I was like, Joel, you want to be on our podcast? And, and then he was, and then I signed up for the event, the Nose to Tail, that I met you guys at, and then it was crazy. I emailed Joel, and this was after obviously interactions with the podcast and whatnot. And just said, I'm going to be coming into town. I'm excited to see you and the crew and whatnot. And that was it. He said, get here early on Thursday and we can shoot, film, media. We'll do a whole tour, me and you, of the farm.
Wow.
So we ended up shooting like a 90-minute mini documentary that's with a filmmaker right now, actually, on Thursday night. And then I had dinner with him and his wife and his mom, and all this stemmed, and I'm just giving you this story and everyone listening, from one email that I thought in my mind would never get a response.
Yeah.
And now here I am, I'm friends with Dr. McCullough and Joel. And like, I was emailing with Joel yesterday, 3 emails back and forth. Like, I had a question about a pond, like, but it's just awesome though. And that's what stems from that. And then a second one, because I really want to emphasize this for people, Dr. Jordan Peterson interviewed Michael Yawn. He's a combat journalist, and he did a podcast with Dr. Jordan Peterson, and I loved the podcast. It had over 1 million views. I literally it was in a parking lot when I finished it. I sent Michael Yawn a email, and I just said, like, this is who I am. I listened to this. I'm a huge fan. By the time I got out of grocery shopping, I got a response.
Wow.
And we're releasing that in the next few weeks. But like, that's what I'm getting at with people listening, and even for you guys, and just, myself included moving forward, like, put it out there, put it out there. And you might be shocked at what happens. So
definitely. No, those are amazing stories. And yeah, absolutely what we're talking about, for sure.
That is great, guys. Well, you are doing amazing work. You're inspiring to me, and hopefully people listening. I want individuals to look your company up. And so how can they find the website, Instagram? What are those links?
So the website and all the merchandise is on there is rawmilkanddeadlifts.com. So just all spelling out all the words, rawmilkanddeadlifts.com. Or on Instagram, same thing, just at rawmilkanddeadlifts. And you can also get to the site from the Instagram. So that's pretty much where we dwell. We will be, I'm trying to think. So we'll be at the Weston A. Price conference at the end of October in Knoxville. I think it's like the 21st through 23rd, around there. We'll be at the big HOA, that's Homesteaders of America event in October in Front Royal, Virginia. And those are, our 2 next big events that will be at in person coming up. So I think the HOA one is sold out, but the Weston A. Price one might not be. So, but yeah, Raw Milk and Deadlifts on Instagram, or rawmilkanddeadlifts.com on the interweb.
Awesome. I want to encourage listeners to support you guys. Get a t-shirt, get a hat. They're super good quality, and you make a good statement, and you're supporting an awesome company with young entrepreneurs. So head over there and make that purchase. So, all right, Tommy and Luke, thank you for your time today. It's been a pleasure, and I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, brother.
Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it.